in our part of the world, it's about education, it's about infrastructure, it's about roads, it's about the political reforms, it's about moving away between trickle-down economics to economics that actually empower the middle class and make it part of the decision-making process on all different sort of levels in the country. This was not taking place under Assad, and no one sort of paid attention as to the importance of that. So the facts were clear for a lot of the activists, and to us it was only a matter of time. And of course, like with any prophecy, the best way to be a good prophet is to cheat a little bit and engage yourself in actually trying to make your prophecies come true. So, and this is what we've been doing. We've been sort of working for many years trying to empower these local activists. And the measure of success is that once a message is sent to the country, once a message about dissidents is sent, once a message saying that it's up to you to change, and not up to us in the opposition to lead you, but it's you who have to actually become the leaders and take to the streets and impose your will on everybody, including the opposition. Once that message really reached, I think the measure of success is that our networks become irrelevant. Right now, we are not the leaders. None of us can claim to be, with any credibility, that, hey, we represent the protest movement, we are the one who made it happen. We simply broadcasted a message for a period of many years, based on what we saw on the street, based on what people wanted, based on their desire for change. And we took their local concerns, and we tried in our messages to link between their local concerns and the fact that we have a corrupt government based on nepotism that's incapable of reforming, having been given so many chances before to do so. And we wanted them to see for themselves the inability of the regime to reform, and therefore the need for a true democratic push, a true revolution to take place in the country. Once the message seemed to have percolated in people's consciousness and people took to the street, at that moment we simply lost control of the situation. The movement became self-organizing. The activists who are responsible for organizing the movements they don't even know us necessarily, or if they knew us, they're now went beyond these circles. If at one point we were 500 people working, right now there are thousands of people working in organizing these protests, and they have organized themselves independently, and basically the only thing they want from us is advice, and they want us to be their loudspeakers, they want us to get the message across, their demands across to the international community. They don't want us to piggyback on their success and on their sacrifices and sort of install ourselves as sort of the leaders of the revolution. But at the same time, they want us to play a leadership role, because in the absence of their ability to organize themselves right now on the street in an open way, in a democratic way, in the absence of this kind of processes at this stage, they need a transitional arrangement. So a lot of people right now, and I think look at the Syrian opposition, and especially outside the country, and say, you still have a role to play. That role is in trying to formulate a transitional alternative that can be endorsed by the protest movement inside, can be endorsed by the international community, because the only way we can see the international community at this stage moving from beyond issuing sanctions on Assad and condemning the violence to embracing change and facilitating change in Syria is when they recognize that there is an alternative to the Assad regime, an alternative that they can see at this stage. The situation in Libya, where the alternative was not very clear and was haphazardly thrown basically in the last few minutes, it's because it happened this way in Libya, it cannot happen the same way in Syria. I mean, every time we have a scenario that plays out, a new scenario needs to be established for the next country. The Libyan scenario is not going to happen in Syria. No one is going to come and endorse a council that has haphazardly thrown together, that does not have legitimacy inside. Everybody wants to see the Syrian opposition movement and the Syrian dissidents group abroad being able to put together something credible, something that the streets, the protesters can endorse in their movement, and they can say, look, we endorse these people, we consider them to be a transitional figures at least, and able to represent us for this transitional period. And I think that the Obama administration, among other Western governments, will be willing to sort of engage this kind of a council once it's put together, when it's endorsed by the opposition, by the protest movement leaders inside the country. Because for all the talk about Assad can reform, and even when President Obama said in his latest speech that Bashar Assad has a choice to lead the transition or get out of the way, I think the emphasis really was on get out of the way. No one really believed in Assad as a reformer anymore, and every time basically whether it's Secretary Clinton or any American official said anything about reform, I think immediately the Assads and their reaction on the street showed that they are uninterested in it. They are incapable of it, really. Any serious reform means that they have to lose power, and they don't want to lose power. It's as simple as that. They're clinging for dear life. They know only one way to live, I think, which is to be in control. So an exit strategy is what really need to be looking forward to at this stage. And no one in the international community is going to go that distance unless the Syrian opposition movements are able to say, look, this is an alternative for a transitional period. No one can field an alternative for many years to come, because the whole idea is for us to deal with the unpredictability of democratic elections and to get to that point. And I think it's not going to take too long after basically the regime falls. Probably everybody is speaking about a transitional period of 4 to 6 months before elections happen, and the people get to choose who their leaders are. How we are going to get there? Is it going to be very bloody? Is the international community willing to get involved in a situation that could develop into another conflict? Because the Assads really wanted to become another conflict, and this is basically have always been the strategies of so many dictators in our part of the world, is that they always want to make it a zero-sum game. They always want to make it into we'll deliver mayhem if necessary, we'll destroy everything, and I think Gaddafi has shown us the extent to which he's willing to go, and I think the Assads are trying to say, hey, we can do the same. Can we call their bluff? Is that a bluff? I think all these are open questions, but the status quo as it is cannot hold, and the legitimacy of Assads have really been completely evaporated in the minds of the Syrian people. The protest movement will continue. Violence on part of the authorities will continue, and the international community has a choice whether they can sit down and watch massacres taking place on a daily basis or a weekly basis, since we are, the bloodiest day has always been Friday and the weekend. Or they can be more proactive and begin exploring the alternatives, begin talking to countries like Turkey and Qatar and Egypt and Iraq, and see if indeed these regional actors can help chart an exit strategy for the Assads, can help contain the violence, and can help make it a short period of time before stability is reimposed in Syria under a democratic government. But the idea that the Assads can stay is, in my opinion, a destructive one. If anyone thinks that it's going to be it's better because it's the devil we know, or if anyone thinks it's even possible, I think they're fooling themselves. This is not an acceptable solution to the protest movement, and frankly, the longer they stay in power, despite the fact that we have managed to keep it peaceful for the most part on part of the protesters, and really we cannot see any kind of organized violence despite all the rhetoric that the regime has used